Oh lads, this is a bit of a surprise, I would assume. You probably thought this channel was dead and buried, considering the fact that I haven't actually uploaded to it in almost a year. But yeah, it's coming back. And trust me, this won't be one of 2 videos before I go on another year-long sabbatical. I'm actually going to try and keep this going. And I just want to now do on this channel the thing that I do best, which is just talk wheel. I will keep the Celtic content for when match days happen after the winter break, but for now I'm just gonna look back at the 2021 Formula 1 season and rank the drivers based on how well I think they done over the course of this season, okay? Alright, let's go. 20th, Nikita Mazepin. I mean, who else was I going to put here? Nikita Mazepin, he was doomed from the start. Everyone hated him already, although to be fair, that was completely justified. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna go on about it, right? If you don't know what happened, then you really don't want to know, and if you do know, then why the f do you need to be reminded of it again? But as if that wasn't bad enough, right? His driving was equally shit, and he had by far the worst car on the grid. It was a recipe for disaster. And I mean, you know this guy wasn't popular when the fact that when he crashed out of the Grand Prix in his debut 3 corners in, the world just rejoiced at his failures. And I mean, he was a long way off Mick, who had the exact same car, who himself takes time to even fully adapt to a new series. So yeah, by far worst driver in the grid. 19th, Nicholas Latifi. Okay, on one hand, Latifi did better than I thought he would do, but let's be honest, it's not exactly like the expectations were very high, were they? I mean, he did score points, which was good, but I mean, he did kind of need World War III happening in front of him to get there, and a race that never actually took place for it to happen. Apart from that, he was kind of mediocre. He did beat George in qualifying about a couple times, so which I guess is alright. But then again, the fact that his record was that bad against him in the first place really isn't that great. And apart from that, he was pretty unspectacular. So yeah, this seems about right. 18th, Yuki Tsunoda. Okay, lads, this is difficult because on one hand, Tsunoda was really good both in Bahrain and Abu Dhabi, the first race and the last race of the season, but there's a reason why seasons are 22 races and not just 2. In the other 20 races, he was pretty bang average, and that's being polite. Even he had so many needless crashes, specifically in qualifying, and while he was scoring points, he was a long way off of Pierre Gasly. Which, I mean, I'm not saying that I would expect him to beat Gasly this season, but yeah, he really, I wasn't expecting him to be that far off him. And it's sad because I rate Tsunoda. I actually do. I rated him a lot when he was in F2, right? And I was dead excited about him. I mean, obviously I wanted Mick Schumacher to win the championship, but I mean, but Tsunoda really, he was one of the drivers that really did catch my eye that season. So I'm hoping he can turn this around next season and carry the momentum from Abu Dhabi, because with about 5 billion promising Red Bull Junior drivers waiting in the wings for a seat in 2023, he can't afford to drown again like he did this season. So yeah. 17th, Mick Schumacher. Okay lads, this feels harsh, because Mick did really all that was asked for him. For God's sake, he took a literal Tesco shopping trolley into Q2 at Turkey. I mean, lads, but he did make a few mistakes this season, like spinning under a safety car at Imola, and he was more prone to completely trashing up the car in practice than even Mazepin was. So it wasn't exactly like he had a near flawless season and did literally everything good. But like George Russell in 2019, Because George Russell, he in his first season, he never got the car into Q2 once, right? And you could argue that the Haas in 2021 was about as bad as the Williams in 2019, but I can't remember any one time where George just completely destroyed the car, where like Mick did in Monaco free practice and also in Hungary. So I guess it is a bit difficult to rate Mick. He did have some good performances, I guess. So 17th, I don't know. 16th, Antonio Giovinazzi. Okay, lads. On one hand, Giovinazzi, he is a bit harsh that he's leaving the sport, especially for Guan Yu Zhou of all people. But he was also quite good in qualifying points, but in races he tended to drop like an anvil, and was by far the most anonymous dude in that grid. For Christ's sake, it got to the point where people either forgot he was racing, or forgot that he was either still in Formula 1 in the first place. And that's ultimately why he lost his seat, so I can't really rate him any higher than 16th. 15th, Kimi Raikkonen. Okay, Kimi Raikkonen has now officially bowed out of Formula 1 after 20 years. I mean, honestly, he did have a few good performances this season, like most notably at places like Mexico, but then he was also a bit clumsy at points this season, where it just seemed like he was off daydreaming, or already thinking about his pension, or just, whatever. Because, I mean, it happened at Portimao where he ran into the back of Gio, or in Austria where he was clumsily tangling with Sebastian Vettel late in the race. I wasn't pissed in the slightest over that. But, but still, good enough. 15th, I don't know. 14th, Lance Stroll. Okay, again, I really don't know how to rate Lance this season. I mean, on one hand, his qualifying is still god-awful, right? He was absolutely trounced by Sebastian in qualifying this season, which, to be fair, I don't think a lot of people were expecting him to beat Seb in every aspect this season, unless you're a Twitter user, unless you're some mad Lance Stroll enthusiast on Twitter. But ultimately, Stroll's pace in races was pretty good, and he was kind of unlucky at times, more specifically in Baku. But there were also some races where he was driving like a complete bozo, most notably Hungary, and as well as also Sochi with Sebastian Vettel. It was quite funny, because at the start of the season, Seb and Stroll fans were all just like casually coexisting together with no issues at all. By the time it got to September, we were desperately hoping for the other driver to be flushed out the team for all of eternity. And of course, Stroll fans would always win that argument, because his dad kind of owns the team. But Stroll did have some good performances this season, most notably at the start of the season, when the car again just really wasn't that great. It wasn't great all season, but most notably at places like Imola, I guess. He did well there. Qatar as well, so his race pace is pretty decent, but I mean his qualifying pace is absolute trash, so he does really need to work on that. 13th, Daniel Ricciardo. Okay, lads, Daniel Ricciardo in 2021 was just painful to watch. After being one of the drivers of this season in 2020 with Renault, his repeat drowning at McLaren in 2021 it was just sad. This is a guy who walked into Red Bull in 2014 and took the reins from Sebastian Vettel, right? To the point where Vettel immediately wanted to leave. But I mean, Ricciardo did have a few good races. He did get a little bit better as the season progressed, especially in the second half of the season, most notably with that win at Monza, and he did outscore Lando in the second half of the season, and did begin to start out qualifying him and out racing him more. So I guess there's that, but still I can't judge him any higher than 13th. 12th, Sergio Perez. Okay, lads. Again, this is difficult, because Perez, when he was on it, he was good, right? He had that win at Baku where he managed to defend against Lewis for the full race before Lewis just forgot how to turn left. And he also had that trio of third place finishes, and he did have some amazing battles with Lewis, and the one in Abu Dhabi, which arguably gave Max a title. But that being said, again, it is 22 races long for a season, and he was on struggle street way too often this season, considering he was in a Red Bull, right? And that can't exactly happen. I mean, you just can't. It's as simple as that. So, yeah, it was a bit. It wasn't great, let's say, for the full stint. 11th, Valtteri Bottas. Again, Bottas was just bang average as you'd expect. I mean, at the start of the season, he was doing absolutely terribly, right? He had an absolute stinker at Imola before the crash with George Russell, but the question should have been, why was George even near him in the first place? Because he was in a Williams where Bottas was in a Mercedes. And then, of course, let's not forget about Azerbaijan. A performance that was so terrible that it wouldn't surprise me if he had Mercedes fans questioning the meaning of life itself. Although he did pick it up around France time and was getting on the podium more regularly, and he did have a dominant win at Turkey, largely because Lewis Hamilton had his engine powered, but we'll just ignore that, right? So he did alright. Although he did disappear in Abu Dhabi when the team needed him to be there most. So, and that's probably another thing that cost Lewis Hamilton the title in the end. 10th, George Russell. Okay, lads, George Russell. Wow. I mean, let's be real. I mean, his qualifying results have been better than expected. It was only 3 years ago where it looked like Williams getting out of Q1 was impossible. And this season it was disappointing if he didn't get out of Q1. And he finally broke into Q3 as well, and he scored his first points for Williams, including a goddamn podium at Spa. Granted, it took it for the race to never even happen, but he still managed to somehow qualify the thing in P2. He also qualified P3 at Sochi just a few races later. So he was good this season. He more than earned his Mercedes drive, right? Now, next season, it's going to be an all Mercedes British lineup, isn't it? I mean, it'll be Lewis Hamilton, the guy who has probably the worst fan base in all of Formula 1, and the Tory James Bond alongside him. Good Christ. 9th, Fernando Alonso. Okay, I can already feel the pitchforks coming from people on Twitter and just Alonso fans in general, right? For Christ's sake, I can already feel it coming, right? But lads, I'm judging this off the full season, remember? And Alonso at the start of the season, he was pretty terrible. I mean, the first 5 races of the season, he was getting dusted by Ocon every single race. And let's not forget, even towards the end of the season, there were a few races where Ocon had his number, like more specifically at places like Jeddah. And I mean, for Christ's sake, even Hungary, Alonso was literally used as a number 2 to keep Ocon in the lead, right? I mean, good Christ, if Sebastian Vettel had to do that for Stroll, he'd be rinsed until he'd be pretty much forced into retirement. That's how much slander he'd be getting. But no, Alonso's PR is genuinely insane. So of course he gets bigged up as a top 3 driver of the season for that. It's like, no, like, don't get us twisted. Ocon genuinely matched him this season, right? So yeah, if you're gonna force a narrative that Stroll was matching Vettel, right, then you've got to do the same with Ocon and Alonso, right? And I know that I've put Stroll further down this list, right? But that's just because I think Seb managed to get more out of the car. He got the absolute maximum out of the car. He might not have been as consistent, but he did get the maximum out of the car and did have some wretched luck at points, right? Alonso, just he was okay. He pretty much did what Ocon did this season. So he can't. It's not as if he could just make up this whole myth that he was outperforming his car again, because now he hasn't got an absolute bozo teammate like Massa in 2012. Anyway, that's my rant over about Fernando Alonso, and now let's just move on in the list. 8th, Sebastian Vettel. Okay, to be honest, I think they were actually, Vettel and Alonso were pretty even, to be honest. But I can't look past this, right? Vettel had the worst car. But easily, right? The Aston Martin was easily worse than the Alpine this season, right? And Vettel had some absolutely magnificent performances. Some performances that made you question if his spark was really actually back, like at Monaco where he finished 5th, and then of course the Baku podium. He fought for the one at Hungary before Aston Martin were Aston Martin and forgot to actually put the right fuel in the car, and then he also got P5 at Spa. And to be honest, if the race went ahead, that could have actually been a podium if you think about it. He also had other good races like Mexico as well, USA as well was also a good one, and he narrowly missed out in points in Brazil, and he did win the Overtake Award. Granted, I know that trophy has got probably as much credibility as Billie Eilish's career, but I mean, it's an award, so you might as well win it if you can. So, and that's what he did. And I think Vettel was able to get more out of the Aston Martin this year than what Stroll did. Yes, Vettel maybe wasn't as consistent, but then and Stroll was unlucky at Baku because Stroll could have got a top 6 or 7 finish there. But again, if you want to talk about bad luck, Vettel had the whole brakes issue. There was a whole brakes issue at Imola, so that Vettel had to start from the pits. He then got a penalty for the thing not even being on the car in time, and then he had to retire from the race near the end. So there was that. There was also the incident with Raikkonen at Austria. There was the fuel issue at Hungary. The race not even going ahead at Spa. And then there was the Haas's blocking him in Zandvoort, Stroll and Ocon pushing him off in Monza. I could just go on at this point. It was ridiculous. Oh, and there was also the incident with Tsunoda at Saudi, which wasn't his fault. Well, he was running in 8th with what was the 9th best car that weekend, by the way. So that's my reasoning. And moving on. 7th, Pierre Gasly. Okay, Gasly, I don't know how I can actually rate him this season. He was decent last year, right? He got a podium at Baku. Although he was in the 3rd to 5th best car point. I don't know what the lighting's doing at this point. I've just completely given up at this point. But that's the thing. He was decent last year. I don't think he was a top 5 driver last year, but he did well. There's nothing much more I can really say apart from that. 6th, Esteban Ocon. Okay, lads, be honest, how many of you all actually thought Esteban Ocon was going to win a race in 2021? Be honest here. Because, honestly, I thought he was going to get absolutely rinsed by Alonso this year. And this is coming from someone who has probably the biggest Alonso agenda in the history of the world, right? So, the fact that Ocon was actually matching Alonso, he matched him in the qualifying battle, and was close to him in the standings as well. He pretty much near enough the same amount of points. Considering the fact that Ocon had a broken chassis around France and Austria time, that's quite the feat. Which, again, it's not a good look for Alonso if you need your teammate's chassis to be broken to actually beat him. But I mean, still, Ocon he did well. He had some really good performances here. There was the win at Hungary. He also narrowly missed out on a podium at Jeddah, which was one of his best performances of the season. So yeah, it's 6th. 5th, Lando Norris. Okay, right. Okay, this is the controversial one. Lando Norris in 5th, lads. Again, if we're talking about the first half of the season, then I'd probably put him 2nd. But no, in the second half of the season, he just did what he always did. He sort of dipped. He wasn't the same level as what Ricciardo was, and he also seemingly forgot what an intermediate tyre was. And yeah, he was unlucky at times, like in Brazil, but I mean, still, it wasn't great. And he couldn't even finish top 5 in the standings at the end of the day, after he was so far clear. Now I get McLaren also dipped off towards the end, but yeah, the second half was quite underwhelming. 4th, Charles Leclerc. Okay, lads, I'm aware that Leclerc finished below Norris, right, and had 3 less podiums, but Leclerc was much more consistent. I mean, Norris had a few races, especially in the second half of the season. He could finish second one race and then 10th the next one. Leclerc had like a string of races where he would finish either 4th or 5th in the second half of the season. And he felt like he was constantly in the top 6. He was always outpacing Sainz, and Sainz is no slouch either. So, yeah, and the fact that he almost won at Silverstone, that drive at Silverstone was probably one of the best races Charles done in his career. So, and this is probably his weakest season in my opinion. So, yeah, it's still good, 4th place. And in my opinion, he's going to win the championship in 2022. 3rd, Carlos Sainz. Okay, best of the rest, Carlos Sainz. Again, there was not really any race where Sainz was just bad, right? Portimao is the only race I can think of where he wasn't just. But even then, he outqualified Charles. Baku, he did have a half spin, but he did have a decent result in the end anyway. He got 4 podiums, right? And I'm pretty sure I've seen a stat where he's got like some top 5s, 4 races in a row he got top 5s when he started lower than 15, which is just ludicrous. And again, Sainz, he was mega consistent all year. He finished every single race, and there were only 2 outside the points. He also has the longest active point streak going, so yes, 3rd. 2nd, Lewis Hamilton. Okay, lads, you can flip a coin to decide these two. Actually, no, that's not fair. Verstappen was amazing all season, but Lewis Hamilton was good, especially in the latter stages of the season. In the first half of the season, he was a bit dodgy. You know, there was the incident at Imola, the bad race at Monaco, and then of course the incident at Baku. But then also there was also a team mistake in Hungary, which wasn't fully his fault, I don't think. But then in the second half of the season, he was a lot better. Although that being said, he did kind of bottle the whole weekend at Monza. In a car that was by far quicker than the Red Bull, he somehow found himself even near Verstappen to the point where they collided again. Although he did turn it around towards the end of the season, he did win 3 of the last 4 races, and in my opinion had one of his best drives of the season in Abu Dhabi, and it was kind of a shame that he lost out in that manner. But if we look at the guy at the top of standings, who obviously I've put first, Max Verstappen, you know, Verstappen is a worthy world champion, whether you like to admit it or not, okay? And yes, you could bring up the whole fiasco towards the end of the race at Abu Dhabi, right? But let's be real, Lewis Hamilton shouldn't have even been in a position to even be able to win the title at Abu Dhabi in the first place. I mean, are we just forgetting about Verstappen's tyre failure at Baku? Lewis Hamilton forgetting what an apex was at Silverstone, and Bottas forgetting what a braking zone was in Hungary. If it wasn't for that, then Verstappen has this thing wrapped up in October. So, yeah, he is a worthy world champion, whether you like to admit it or not, and he is the future of Formula 1. Alright, but that's the end of the video, lads, and let me know, have I got this completely wrong? Probably. I mean, I can already wait for the Norris and the Alonso fans to come, but yeah, feels good to be back making videos, and I'll see you later.